TV's Rob is Unwoke. TV's Rob is Unwoke.
He's unwoke.
Welcome to yet another thrilling episode of TV's Rob is Unwoke. I am your not-so-humble host, TV's Rob, and we're going to do things a little bit differently this week. What we're going to do is, you know how I always say, hey, if you want to come on the show and you want to talk about something that's on your mind, feel free to hit me up, right? Well, we had a guy who did just that by the name of Stephen Avery. You may know him on Twitter as @president of DCBP, and he came on to talk about something that he felt very strongly about. And before you know it, we got into this long conversation, and it took a long time. I mean, the raw file was over 3 hours long, and I never expected to go that long talking about this particular subject, but we got into the flow. We were having a good time, and before you know it, it was really, really long. So, for this episode of TV's Rob is Unwoke, I am going to share with you the first part of the conversation that Stephen and I had on Star Trek and how the left and liberals are screwing up their own type of creation. Now think about that. Gene Roddenberry set up Star Trek to show a utopian paradise where all of mankind is together as one people. There's no money, there's no hunger, there's no poverty, there's no want for materialistic things. So this ultimate socialist paradise, how is it that the left can screw it up? Well, Stephen takes a dive into it, and we talk about other things as well. But don't fret. I know I said we're going to do things differently this week. But don't worry. I will be back with my usual commentary on the next episode. I really wanted to give Stephen the spotlight for this episode, since that's what this show is all about. Letting you, the listener, come on and share whatever is on your mind, while I rant and rave in the meantime. Let me give you a little taste of what's coming up on the next episode. An FAA advisory group is urging the agency to replace words with gender-neutral terms. Now, what are the words that we can't say anymore, and what are they being replaced with? We're going to talk a little bit about that. Also, Howard Stern. Oh, the $500 million man is pissing off his audience. And guess what? They are directly responsible for making sure he gets paid. Talk about what's going on with that. And Kendall Jenner, you know, one of the Jenner Kardashian girls. Well, she wants you to know that she struggled in life. And wow, you will feel so bad for Kendall Jenner once you hear about this. That'll come out on the next episode of TV's Rob is Unwoke. And now, without further ado, Stephen Avery and I talking nerdy stuff. I want to pause for a second to talk about protein bars. We've all seen them, and we've most likely tried a few of them while trying to lose weight or just get healthier. But what's the biggest problem with all of them? Well, basically, they all taste like crap. They're hard to chew, they taste awful, and they don't provide any type of actual satisfaction. But I'm happy to say that I have found one out there that isn't anything like the rest, and that is Built Bar. Built Bar is healthier than all those other protein bars. They're low calorie, low sugar, high protein, high fiber. They're great for keto diet. Lose or maintain weight while indulging in a delicious treat. Each bar contains only 110, 160 calories, 16 to 20 grams of protein, and 3 to 5 net carbs. Enjoy the healthiest thing you'll do today. When you eat a Built Bar, you feel better about yourself because healthy has never been this delicious. Built Bars are a lot like a candy bar, but good for you. They have 18 different flavors, including some of my own personal favorites: cookies and cream, strawberry, peanut butter, and mint brownie. All of their bars are covered in 100% chocolate. So you're probably saying to yourself, TV's Rob, how do I get these? Where do I go? All you got to do, go to BuiltBar.com, use the promo code TVsRob to get 10% off your next order. Use promo code TVsRob for 10% off at BuiltBar.com. Trust me, you'll love them. I do. BuiltBar.com, promo code TVsRob.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its continuing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before.
All right, this is the interactive portion of TV's Rob is on Woke with me, TV's Rob, and this week we have a special guest. Now, let's see, do I want to call him by his actual name? Do I want to call him by his Twitter handle? Or how do I want to address this? Well, he's a Pathead, a loyal Pathead. You can find him on Twitter at Patriot Princess Steve. Well, that's the name, but at President of DCBP, which you'll have to explain what that means. It's Stephen Avery in the house here on TV's Rob is Unwoke. How you doing today?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Oh, great. I threw in the 3 different ways to address you now. So
Well,
now everybody knows.
On that note, just so that everybody knows, my acceptable pronouns are Princess, Your Highness, and Salty Scallywag.
Oh, yes. Don't want to misuse the pronouns here. Sorry.
Indeed. So we just want to make sure that's all clear with everybody. So,
well, crap. I used all the wrong pronouns just introducing you.
That's okay. They're optional.
Damn it. Oh, good. Thank God for that. So, how's it going? What's happening in the world with you, and what brings you to TV's Rob is Unwoke?
The usual chaos, mayhem, death, destruction. To answer your initial question, president of DCBP is I'm the president of a fake company called Douche Canoes by Princess.
Oh, okay.
We go out and make fun of absolute douche canoes. I recently started a fake insurance site as well for all those the gun toters who keep losing their guns in boating accidents. Well, we now
who would lose their guns in a boating accident?
I don't know.
I'm seeing one hand raised here, and it's not mine.
But yeah, we provide fake boating insurance so that not only do we cover your fake boat loss, but we also cover your fake guns that were lost. So, are you
going to offer volcano coverage?
Maybe.
Areas without volcanoes.
Maybe. I mean, we've recently been expanding into building, supplying, and installing screen doors for submarines. Don't have anything yet about volcanoes, but I will talk with my board members about that.
Sweet. Wow, you have a board. Wow, this is highly complex shit here. Come on.
Really just me and my various personalities, but whatever.
Oh, you didn't have to reveal that. I mean, you could have made yourself just sound huge and say, yeah, we got a board, we've got investors, we've got stockholders.
And we're getting there.
You're working on it. So you wanted to talk about something that is not directly news related, not directly related to anything happening in politics, in the political realm or current events and news. You wanted to talk about something that I personally enjoy myself, and that is sci-fi and in particular the Star Trek universe.
Very much so. And I definitely want to talk with you about it because you're a fellow Trekkie. So
now, wait, before you just said Trekkie. Now, the online debate that I've seen in recent years, is it Trekkie or Trekker? Which one is it?
It's Trekkie.
Thank God. Okay.
So, Trekker,
so I'm still on the right side of that. Thank God.
No, Trekker is somebody who goes on treks.
That's what I thought.
So Trekkie is somebody who enjoys the Star Trek universe.
So the libtards screw up something else.
Yes. Once upon a time, they used to try and say, no, a Trekkie is original series, Trekker is Next Generation and Beyond. No, you're a Trekkie or you're an idiot. So that's the way it goes.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, no, I wanted to, talk with you and, talk with everybody else about just how much the liberals have screwed up their own fucking perfect universe.
All right. The
So-
F-bomb tells me that you're serious about this. So lay out the case.
Absolutely. So I don't know what people may or may not know about Star Trek. The very big basis of it was Gene Roddenberry, the creator, was looking for somewhere that he could express his views on society, right? Things that he felt needed to be dealt with, needed to be addressed. And it was a way that he could do it without just being a complete slap in the face, because he could do it through alien worlds. So he could address racism and do it by painting one guy, half of him white, half of him black, and paint another guy half white, half black, but they're white and black on opposite sides. And so they're racist because, well, that guy's, white on his left half, and everybody knows that white on the right half is the right way to be. So it was a way for him to address, different things like that. It is a absolute beautiful liberal paradise, and they themselves can't even get it right. So
Absolutely. I completely agree with you there. And I have a theory behind it. Let me throw this by you before you start digging into the details.
by all means,
That is the current generation of directors and writers, this younger crop, I guess you could say. They are big on deconstructing everything in order to reconstruct it in another way. All in the guise of, well, we're trying to stay true to the original vision.
I might agree with that if it weren't for the tipping point that I was about to bring up.
There you go. See, I knew there was another argument that was going to shut that down pretty quick. So I'm glad I mentioned it.
The thing that really drove me nuts about it, because in all honesty, like a lot of people take a look at old Trekkies and they're like, oh, you don't like Discovery because of this, that, the other, blah, 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 blah.
I don't like it because it's shit.
I couldn't get past the first episode. I watched the first episode and I didn't even recall seeing anything social justice related or anything in that episode. It drove me nuts. First off, it's supposed to be 10 years before Kirk's time, but the ship is almost Next Generation level. I don't know what those aliens were, but they sure as hell weren't Klingons.
Mm-hmm.
And who in their right mind is going to watch the first officer just stroll onto the bridge, suddenly start countermanding the captain's orders, and not question anything and not do anything about it?
Well, they trust the chain of command.
Yeah, in that case, the chain of command was broken, and they had a pretty damn good feeling about it, but they're just going to sit there and really but, until the captain suddenly shows up. I mean,
well, the second officer was a bitch.
Yeah, but that first episode couldn't even get past that. I don't even know anything about any of the rest of the stuff people say happened in it. Apparently, Klingons are double endowed or something like that, according to that show, which I call BS. Or, excuse my language, I call bullshit.
There you go.
So, yeah. I mean,
gotta keep it real. You gotta keep it real here.
None of my arguments even deal with Discovery. They might deal a little bit with Picard, but we'll talk about that if it ever comes up. But
now, I am ashamed to admit that I have watched every episode of Discovery. And the thing is that I do it out of spite. I don't watch it because I'm into it and I enjoy it and I find pleasure from it. I watch it because I keep telling myself, this is how I justify it, and tell me how fucked up this is. In my mind, if I watch it, that contributes to the numbers in the stream, their whole digital analytics. And the more watches equals more shows down the pike. So my thought process is, if I watch this, they'll make more Star Trek related entities. Am I wrong?
you're not wrong on that.
Because I feel like a putz watching it.
I mean, the thing that scares me is the more watches they get on something like Discovery, the more they make more like Discovery.
Yeah, that's the downside to it.
So-
But I will say, of the CBS All Access Trek shows that are available, my favorite by far is Lower Decks.
Love Lower Decks.
Oh, God.
Absolutely
that is
love
so
Lower Decks.
great.
Absolutely hilarious. It is a return to what Trek is supposed to be without being all about we're the best fleet in the ship, we're the best ship in the fleet, and here's all the senior officers who are the most ultimate badasses of the world. First off, you can't be an ultimate badass without Private Hudson, but we'll address that some other time. But it's all about the junior officers. It's by far, I think the tagline is, it's the least interesting ship in the fleet or something like that.
Yeah, they specialize in second contact.
Exactly.
It's got one of the creators and writers from Rick and Morty
Mm-hmm.
at the helm of it, so it's awesome that way.
It's all about Star Trek when you're not the biggest badasses in the Federation. And I love it.
Captain. Yeah. And the thing is, the fact that it was plucked, the whole concept for the show was plucked from one episode of TNG.
Mm-hmm.
Tells you that TNG is still the most influential series in the entire Star Trek universe.
Funny you should mention that, because that's where my tipping point came in. So,
all right. Lay it on me.
So being a Trekkie, I'm sure you're familiar with the season 1 episode Code of Honor.
Oh, God.
Yes.
Oh, God.
So for the people who don't know this episode, the Enterprise goes to the planet Lagone 4. They're looking for a vaccine, ironically, for a plague that's affecting one of their colonies. They cannot make it themselves. They cannot replicate it. The only place to get it is from the Lagonians. So they go to Lagonians and they say, hey, we would like to negotiate for access to this vaccine. And Lagonians are like, sure, let us come up, take a tour of your ship. We'll talk and see what happens. And the Lagonian ambassador kidnaps, Lieutenant Tasha Yar, the security chief, eventually declares he wants to marry her. His wife challenges her to combat, and so on and so forth. Great episode in all reality, except for the fact that apparently every cast member in the show decided it was absolutely racist and never should have been done because Lagonians were all portrayed by black people.
And they had what basically breaks down to African accents. No fight, no vaccine.
There will be no treaty, no vaccine, and no Tasha Yar.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Which, I mean, and honestly, okay, I got to call out Luton, the leader of the Lagonians, on one thing. You beam aboard the Enterprise, you're greeted by the senior staff, and the chick you focus on is Tasha Yar. Now, I get it. She's the security chief. She has this martial arts training, blah, 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 blah. But really, you're going for Tasha Yar. Are you deaf, dumb, blind, stupid, or just fucktarded?
Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. And 2, it was about power, right?
All right, pop quiz here, Steven. Yar, Troy, Crusher. Fuck, marry, kill. Go.
That was always a tough one for me. I was never much into Yar herself. I mean, I respected her, but just the way she grew up and everything, there was never really anything that really attracted me to her. So
except that one scene with Data.
Yes, very much so. But I wouldn't want to, but she would unfortunately wind up being the kill, because I don't want her in my bed. I don't want her as my bride. If I could just simply say send her away, I would do that instead, but you gave me the only option of kill, so that's what I would do. Troy and Crusher, that one has always been a difficult one for me. I've got a thing for redheads. I've always had a thing for, Troy as well. Although, honestly, having seen Marina Sirtis lately, as far as her viewpoints and everything like that,
I have to give that whole disconnect. I have to separate the two. Otherwise, I will forever just not be able to watch because of how she views everything. Just a total piece of shit human, but
great actress, piece of shit human.
I mean, when that show was on the air, I mean, she let me know she taught me really quick that I was very much into women
Yeah,
at a
very much.
very young age.
But I mean, honestly, when it came down to it, it would probably be, do my thing with Troy and then kick her out of bed, and I'm spending my life with Crusher.
Okay,
So.
see, okay, we actually align there for some of the same reasons. All right, so Tasha, never got into her. The hottest scene that she had was when she was asking Data how fully functional is he, because the outfit was actually good. I didn't like Denise Crosby in Pet Cemetery that much. She was kind of a bitch, so that already kind of ruined her for me.
Never saw it. Not a horror guy.
Okay, but then so she's instantaneously, she was the kill, and I would kill her very much like Armis did. Okay, just bitch slap her to death. Okay, that's it. Between the other two, between Counselor Troy and Dr. Crusher, I would have a hard time spending a lifetime with Troy because she always knows. And you know exactly what I'm thinking.
Yes.
She always knows.
Now,
and I don't know if I can handle that. So she's she would be the perfect fuck buddy because at the time, killer body, killer look, I'm all about it.
I mean,
and Dr. Crusher is the original spacefaring MILF.
It could be worse though, right? Because Troy is only half Betazoid,
but she'll still know. She may not know exactly what you're thinking, but she knows exactly
and that's
what you're
the
feeling.
Thing. She'll know what you're feeling, but she can't place what it is, right? Unlike her mother, who can just pluck your thoughts right out of your head. She knows exactly what you're thinking. So all you got to do is stay away from Mom, which anybody who's watched the show knows. You stay away from Loxana Troy. You don't go anywhere near her, or you're going to go fucking insane.
Absolutely. But at the same time, she'll always know what you're feeling. So,
but she won't be able to.
That could work against you.
Yes, but if you can work it out well enough, you can tell her, "Oh, I'm feeling this way because of this," and then as long as she doesn't pick up, that sense of deception, you're good to go.
Yeah, and who among us is that effective of a liar other than one, say maybe Mr. 18?
Yeah, that does present a bit of a problem, but I mean,
Mr. 18 himself.
I got to play the devil's advocate on that a little bit, but yeah, I'm definitely with you. Thank you very much, Mrs. Troy. Please get out of my bed. Beverly, dear, what's for dinner?
Exactly. So. Yes. I mean, and that she's a good, she'd be a great mother because, oh wait, she already has a kid.
Bingo.
She is a widower, so she's available, like really available.
Very much.
So, I mean, you could just kind of walk into that situation and you're all good. And yet, it took Picard like 30 fucking years to do it, and still couldn't hold on to her.
So anyway,
so continue with your
your
analysis there.
So everybody and their mother screaming, "This is an absolutely racist episode because we're portraying black people as barbarians and savages, and it completely casts a whole bad look on them." And my first thought when I heard about this, because pretty much the entire cast felt this way, but Jonathan Frakes and Denise Crosby, both of them apparently went on some big old interview about it in 2007 talking about, I wish we'd never done that episode and whatnot. It was extremely racist, this, that, the other. And my first thought was, it was supposed to be racist, you idiots!
Exactly. Yes, absolutely. That was totally to convey. That was an episode designed to convey how some people still look upon black people and how that is wrong.
I wouldn't even necessarily say just black people, but other cultures, right?
Yeah, I mean, these people they were painted terribly.
Very much so.
I mean, I watched the episode today and I cringe just thinking, wow, they really went for it. But I think that season 1, I think it suffered from some bad writing. I think they could have nuanced it and made a better presentation and a better argument.
Well, but, you're also talking
you're
about
kind of hamstrung.
You're also talking about a season that, part of the way that they got through it was by stealing from the original series and basically remaking the episode.
Wasn't that episode 3?
I believe so. I don't
think
recall
that-
offhand. I could look it up, but I'm too lazy to do so. But you know, the
Naked Now. Let's see. That was. All right. Let's see.
it was like episode 2 or 3 or 4, somewhere in there.
It was TNG season 1, episode 3. So right
Yep.
after your 2-part debut premiere, Encounter at Farpoint, that's what you went to. Directly stealing from the original series.
I could have
That
sworn there was
bad.
an episode in between, because I think the premiere aired as 1 2-hour episode. I don't recall exactly, but
Let's see.
'cause that was back in, what, 87, 89, something like that?
87, yeah.
Yeah, so I was 6 years old when Next Generation came out.
All right, so yeah, we're in the same time frame there. I was about
Yeah.
I was about 4.
So, but yeah, I mean, that you know,
Actually, no, that was the one that aired directly after. It depends on how you do the math. Code of Honor would have been season 1.
I think that was episode 4.
Yeah, if you consider Encounter at Farpoint a 2-parter, which some people do, some people don't. So the way that they have it broken
yeah, it
down,
depends on how it gets formatted.
yeah, IMDb has it as Encounter at Farpoint, The Naked Now, Code of Honor. So those are your first like 3/4 episodes.
So
Though,
great start, iffy follow-ups, but I mean, I'll be perfectly honest, right? When I watched Code of Honor, at no point ever did I think anybody was trying to make any slams against black people or anything in general. I mean, I grew up watching, you know, original series episodes with my dad, you know, on reruns and everything like that. He's the one that got me into Star Trek. So I knew what Star Trek. I'm 6 years old. I knew exactly what Star Trek was all about, right? So when I watched Code of Honor, at no point did I ever think, oh my God, these people hate black people. You know, what is wrong with them? At no point did I ever think that, right? I thought, this is a great episode. I loved it. It was it had an excellent story to it, had some interesting twists to it, and my absolute favorite part, the last scene that had the Ligonians in it, when you find out that they thought the Enterprise crew was just as fucked up as the Enterprise crew thought they were.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I believe the line goes something like, as you see, Captain, you may excel in technology, but not in civilized behavior.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, that's pretty much exactly what they said verbatim. And
So-
the interesting thing was when you find out that, wait, we thought Lutan and the men were running the show. Oh, they might be running the show, but they're not the ones with the power. Oh, no, no. It's the women that own everything.
Oh, yes, they own everything, and when it was time to make some changes, right then and there, you know what? You were about to toss me to the wolves? You ain't my hubby anymore. Hey, I heard you calling out, you know, you want to be my first one? Yeah,
Yeah,
guess what?
and polygamy's a thing there. I mean, that's kind of a win.
My wife might listen to this episode later just because I'm on it, so I'm not going to make any comments on that.
Well, I mean, there are still certain cultures, certain regions, certain religions that still look upon polygamy as a good thing.
Pat's
I
godless
honestly-
animals.
Yeah, exactly. I can only handle one, and I can barely handle that. So the idea of handling multiple at the same time, yeah, I'm not about that. Can't do it.
No,
Sorry.
not so much. You know, I'm very happy with my wife. I don't need any other women in my life like that. So,
Exactly.
you know,
There you go,
friends,
Steve.
coworkers, random people to yell at, absolutely.
All
People
about it.
to share my bed and my life with, nope, I'm good where
Nope.
I'm at.
Exactly. There you go. See?
So
There you go. We successfully backed out of that corner, and now we can pivot.
pretty much so. But yeah, I mean, just it absolutely kills me, you know, especially when they're out there and they're screaming, you know, this episode was racist and blah 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 blah. It's like, did you guys even bother to watch the episode? Because right in
Yeah.
there, they tell you, hey, it's a two-way street. Not everybody's going to favorably view everybody else. Just because you think you're all high and mighty and, everything else doesn't mean everybody's going to agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
And my number one question that I've always had ever since I heard about the way that these cast members have felt about it, because, Patrick Stewart, Jonathan Frakes, Denise Crosby, LeVar Burton, like everybody from the main cast has spoken out saying this was a horrible episode, never should have been done. You know who I haven't heard make any comments whatsoever about the way they portrayed the Ligonians? The people who played the Ligonians. I have not heard any statement been put out by any of them saying, yeah, I think the way that we were portrayed in that episode was just absolutely fucked up. That episode should never have been done. Not one statement has been issued by any of them that I know of.
Yeah, and I love how these Hollywood types continually go and do the deed, and then they come back later and they complain about it. I'm thinking, did you cash the check?
It had to have.
Well,
Had to have.
so did you leave the show?
So
Obviously not, except Denise Crosby, but the rest of them, did you leave the show? Did you threaten to leave the show?
she
Did
didn't
you cash the
leave.
check?
She didn't leave because she thought the show was, racist or anything like that, though. She just left for a different opportunity.
Well, she left because, my character's not being developed enough. All I say is hailing frequencies open, Captain. And my character's going nowhere, so I want to leave.
Yep,
And then
apparently.
she immediately regretted it because, what happened or what didn't happen? She didn't work that much after that.
Apparently a sex scene with a robot wasn't enough for her. So,
And honestly, think about it. You had an anatomically correct sex toy,
fully functional.
fully functional, programmed in multiple techniques of pleasure. I don't know. If I were a chick, I think I could get down with that.
Reminds me of one of my favorite memes that I've seen. It takes the scene from, I believe, the episode's Reunification, where they would go to Romulus to find Ambassador Spock, and Commander Sela, who's played by Denise Crosby, winds up catching the whole crew or something like that. And she and Data are sitting in a room, and she looks up, she's like, oh, so this is the android that I've come to respect in battle, referring to the Klingon Civil War when he was in command of a starship during the Federation blockade. So, she looks up, she's like, so this is the android I've come to respect in battle. And he responds, and the one your mother came to respect in bed.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, yeah.
So, but yeah, she left not because she felt it was racist, not because she felt it wasn't doing enough to help things. She left because she wasn't getting anything out of it.
And then
I don't
immediately
think it-
regretted it.
Yep.
Worked her way back in as much as humanly possible.
So,
Hey, she was a recurring actress. Let's see, season 3, Yesterday's Enterprise,
yep,
as Tasha Yar.
absolutely
she
awesome
had-
episode.
She had a handful of episodes as Commander Sela, the reunifications and the Klingon Civil War episodes, and then she was back for the finale as Tasha Yar.
Yep.
So obviously, and she will show up at Comic Cons and conventions and things like that as the actress who played Tasha Yar and Commander Sela. So obviously, you left for the wrong reasons. It bit you in the ass, and now you spent the rest of your time making up for it.
Yep.
And what they did after, and I'm glad that they didn't recast her, or they didn't,
Oh, thank God.
bring in another character to fill that role, and they just shifted the pieces around, and they brought Worf into the forefront.
Which I think was probably
The smartest
where
thing
he
they ever
should have
did.
been in the first place. Because
Yeah.
who in God's name is going to believe a Klingon warrior like him? Okay, granted, he was raised from a young age by humans. He knows a lot of human things, but he's very, very proudly Klingon. Where the hell else is he going to work on a starship aside from tactical and security? No, we're going to place him at the con.
Or
Hey.
we're going to place him back at the science stations in the background.
Mr. Warrior, steer the ship.
Yeah, that doesn't seem suited.
May I steer the ship tactically, Captain? I mean, horrible.
Can I have
This,
phaser control over here, Captain? I want to push the button for the phasers and the torpedoes.
I mean, technically speaking, with the LCARS system, he
Could
have
but,
done that. But would they let him? No.
But then what would Tasha do?
So, I mean, that was definitely among the best moves that they, when they moved Worf into security and they moved Geordi into engineering. Best decision they made, because when they had the two of them working the steering wheel, absolutely horrible.
Okay. The entire time you're saying this, I'm in the back of my mind, I'm recalling this conversation my wife Nikki and I had, and that was, wait, the original series, you had an Asian flying the ship, so we all know. We all know the blinker was on. And in TNG, you have a blind man. The fact that the ship didn't crash into anything is a miracle. And now in with Discovery, you have a woman flying the ship, and that thing's been through a couple of accidents.
The only thing they could have done worse was have a guy at the helm and his wife at ops, and no, honey, you need to take a left at the black hole. I know where we're going. Stop badgering me, woman.
Yeah. I mean,
that would be the only thing they could have done worse.
And then after the blind guy, they had a kid. They had a kid getting his learner's permit.
I was about to say he had his learner's permit, so they never left him on the bridge alone. Although somebody did give him access to engineering, which turned out to be a really bad idea when he got caught drinking underage. But that's a whole nother episode.
No, that's the same episode we were just talking about with the ripoff of the original series.
Well, we kind of, alluded to it. We weren't really talking about it, though.
All right, so you have an issue with the actors and actresses complaining about that one episode, and that was your tipping point.
That was my tipping point.
Carry us from there.
So, a lot of people take a look at Star Trek and they're like, oh, it's the ultimate paradise. They don't have any money. They don't have religion. They don't have this. They don't have that. And it's like, you guys are complete morons. Pay attention, right? Because even in the original series, like more so in the movies, not so much in the original series itself, but more so in the movies, they allude to Earth doesn't have money. Earth doesn't use money for what they do, but they do understand the concept of money. Star Trek III Search for Spock, right? You know exactly the scene I'm talking about.
I was going to mention it if you didn't.
So, McCoy is trying to find a way to get to the Genesis planet, and he's negotiating with what we believe possibly might have been an early Ferengi about gaining passage, and he's like, place you, or I can't remember the exact
McCoy says, "Price you name, money I got."
Price you name, money I got. Thank you. I was trying to think. Place.
The alien responds with,
"Place you name, money I name, or else bargain no."
Deal no.
Right. I was confusing my words there for a moment. It's been a while since I watched that one.
I fell asleep to it just the other night, so that was fresh in my mind.
But right there in that episode, they establish they know what money is and how to use it and stuff like that.
Well, even then in Star Trek VI, and this is a little nugget for you, in the opening sequence with the main crew, they're walking into that meeting room at Starfleet headquarters, and they're like, "What are we doing here?" "Oh, maybe they're throwing us a retirement party." And Scotty immediately says, "That suits me. I just bought a boat."
Yep.
Well, how did you buy a boat if there's no money? If there's no concept of money and the
Because there
materialistic
is.
possessions.
'Cause
So
what they don't understand is, right, everybody looks at the Federation and they're like, oh, it's all these people living in harmony. No, the Federation doesn't live in harmony at all, right?
Nope.
What it is, it's basically the galactic version of the United Nations. And, they all argue with each other. That was half the reason why they created the Federation in the first place, not to create, this ultimate peace and harmony where everybody's holding hands singing Kumbaya. But it's basically, look, we know that everybody's not going to get along. We know everybody's going to have issues with each other. Let's create a forum where when those issues do come up, we have people available. We can sit down and discuss things. We can find other ways of doing things. We can help you network so that you don't even have to deal with those guys if you don't want to. Here's all these other people that can provide the same or similar things that you're looking for, and we're all, getting along just fine. So, a lot of these different cultures still have money. They still have some form of money-based economy, right? On Earth, yeah, okay, great. Since first contact, and actually it even didn't start right at first contact, it still took a while before they got to the point of, we really don't have to work for money anymore. What are we going to do now? You know what? Let's work on making ourselves a better people, right? It took a while before they even got to that. So,
and you can say that, in the time of Jonathan Archer, which was 100 years after his first contact, they were still working on it. In the 23rd century, in the time of Kirk, they were still working on it. And
Absolutely.
oh wait, they were still working on it in the time of Picard, Cisco, Janeway.
Other things they were still working on, racism, as we saw evidenced by Code of Honor when, oh my God, look at these fucking idiot aliens.
And the way they always talked about the Ferengi.
The way they talked about the Ferengi.
You can argue that's both racist and anti-Semitic.
Something like that. Probably. I don't know that we could necessarily. I never really viewed the Ferengi as
what
any
people
kind
tried
of
to say
Semitism.
that they were. Oh, see, that's the
I always viewed the Ferengi as crony capitalists.
Okay, because there's a lot of people out there that would equate the Ferengis to the people of Israel, the Jewish community.
No, I never saw it that. I always saw it as this is what happens when people are more concerned about the profit than what they're actually doing with their product, right? Because the whole point of
they're capitalists.
Granted, the whole point of capitalism is you're trying to make money, right? But you do that by providing a product, good, service, something that people want.
Absolutely.
Right? So what happens when you're more concerned about making the money than you are about providing something that people want? Right?
Exactly.
It's the way capitalism works, it's supposed to be a balance.
And shout out to Armin Shimmerman for redeeming the entire Ferengi species.
Oh my God.
Because the Ferengi, just a quick side note, and then we'll get to your next point. The Ferengi were portrayed in TNG as they were supposed to be the next big baddie. They were supposed to be the next Klingon Empire or Romulan Empire. These were supposed to be your big baddies, and it failed miserably. They were comical. They were just, snarling, hissing, growling guys with big ears and like hunchbacks. They were just like Neanderthals, basically. And Armin Shimmerman was the first Ferengi. And you feel bad for him because that's what it was. That's how they looked. And then throughout TNG's run, they started getting a little better, but they were still about like stealing, lying, cheating.
The Ferengi really didn't take off until Deep Space Nine. That's when they really, really got their foothold in Star Trek lore.
And who was the first Ferengi on DS9? Who was the actor?
Shimmerman.
Armin Shimmerman. And what did he turn the Ferengi into by the end of the series?
Oh, he turned them into a fully fleshed out race. It was absolutely amazing. Probably one of the best things about...
Inconceivable.
I never really enjoyed Deep Space Nine. I had a hard time getting into that one.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's bad.
I'm curious.
I personally had a hard time. It felt a lot like a soap opera.
Okay. Okay. No,
It
I
felt
mean,
very much like a soap opera, and I'm not that guy.
I'll say
I,
this.
I will be
When
perfectly honest. I want them out there exploring. I want them out there doing their thing. Granted, they were doing a different form of exploration. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying it was even a bad series. It was a wonderful series. It's just not.
it wasn't your cup of tea.
It wasn't my cup of tea.
Okay, now let me ask you this: during DS9's first run, when it was originally first on the air, I had a hard time with it because it was episodic TV. It was appointment based TV. You had to be in front of the TV Thursday night at 7.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're missing it and you're not catching up. Or until the mid-season break or the end of season break. Otherwise, you were just done. You couldn't. There were gaps.
Yeah.
But now in the days of streaming and binge watching, I have found in the era of Netflix, DS9 has become a far superior series than what I thought of it back when it was on original TV.
And I mean, for me, I still can't get to it. I had this problem when I was watching Enterprise initially at first. It took me, I think I started season 1 and I'd get up to maybe episode 6 or 7 and then it'd be like, I'm bored. And I would drop off. It wasn't until just a few months ago I finally broke that barrier and really got into it. And I fell in love with it right up until the last episode.
Oh, yeah. That was an abomination. But it's interesting you mentioned that because during its 4-year run on TV, people hated it they hated it with the intensity of a billion white hot burning suns, as Pat Gray would say.
I didn't watch.
He said he dislikes it, but they really fucking hated that series, and I don't blame them. But it has grown and it has become this more revered series thanks to the age of streaming. But it's been a long road getting from there to here.
Very much so. I caught the reference. I caught the reference. I absolutely love that song. I thought it was brilliant when they did that. And I
had a hard time with it when it was first on TV because what were we used to before then from TOS, TNG, DS9, and Voyager? These well-composed orchestral pieces.
Very much so.
Now, I thought the Voyager one was a little weak. I liked the later renditions of the DS9 theme as they went later into the series because it had a bit more life and more layers.
Initially, it felt a little empty, like it was missing something, and then they started going into the Dominion War and everything like that, and the theme got fleshed out more.
And the Enterprise theme, it felt more like it wasn't to fit the series so much as it was a product of the time that we were in terms of TV and the network that it was on. Because at the time you had UPN and you had the WB doing a bunch of the, teeny bopper, drama shows that had these catchy little tunes as their opening themes. It didn't fit the Trek that I was more comfortable with.
Well, I mean, when you really look at it, though, Enterprise doesn't quite fit the Trek that most people are comfortable with either, which is why a lot of people had issues with it when it first came out. But think about this, right? Star Trek First Contact, they're getting ready to launch the Phoenix, and Zefram Cochrane starts freaking out in the final moments of the countdown. Why?
He forgot something. He thought he forgot something. He couldn't find something, and it was Magic Carpet Ride.
Magic Carpet Ride, right? So, music, right? Song. So here we are. We're barely 100, not even 100 years later. Okay, we're human society is still very similar to what we know right now. So the way I look at it, there isn't some big grandiose organization of any kind. We're still pretty much on our own. We've got one friend in the entire world, and even them we barely get along with. We're still doing our thing, and music has always been a huge part of human society, right? Especially not just music itself, but song, when we actually figured out how to convey emotion through words. So when you're talking about a series where people are going out, we're starting to really figure out our place, right? Really beginning that grand journey. What better way to start off our grand journey than with a song about the effort, the toil, the sweat, blood, and tears that went into it, and the acknowledgement that we still got a ways to go, but by God, we're working our asses off.
You know, when you put it to me like that with such a philosophical twist, that really makes you think. That's deep. That's really good. I mean, you've brought me around to it. I mean, as the show progressed and they added more layers to it, it grew on me. In fact, I've found the original, re-edited it, and I have it saved in my music library because it is catchy.
I have
will
the
give it that.
original form of it. The version that they came out with in season 3 or whatever it was, when they kind of changed the rhythm of it, I can't stand that one. Every time it popped up, like every time I was going into a new episode, I would hit skip intro because I could not stand that version of it. But the original version of that song, I've got it on my Amazon Music player on my phone.
Well,
I love pulling that one up.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned the scene in the First Contact, because I found two of my absolute favorite episodes of Enterprise are the ones that dealt directly with the events in First Contact, where Zefram Cochrane meets the Vulcans, but instead of shaking their hand, he reaches into his coat and shoots the Vulcan, and they raid the ship, and before you know it, you have the mirror universe.
So begins the mirror universe. Love that episode. I think that was a two-parter.
Yeah, and what they did with T'Pol in those episodes. Yes.
Oh, yes, very much so.
Absolutely. So, yeah, that was one stunningly beautiful Vulcan, and I thought she played the role brilliantly.
Absolutely.
I know people gave her a hard time for it because they're like, "Oh, look, another Vulcan on a Starfleet ship. Oh, we've seen this before." No,
we haven't. Not in this capacity.
Exactly. But I thought she played. I mean, look, if you're gonna cast anybody to play a Vulcan, you've instantaneously given them the hardest job you can have on that set.
Very much so.
Regardless, it doesn't matter. It is the hardest job. It's like trying to recast Data. Okay,
you
got to find exactly. So, I mean, what is the bar that every Vulcan is measured to? Emotion. When they're cast,
or suppression of and logic.
Which actor or which character is the bar set at?
That one could be a toss-up because you're either looking at Leonard Nimoy or Mark Lenard, because both of them were the original Vulcans that everybody knew.
And even then, Mark Lenard was originally portrayed a Romulan before he was cast as Spock's father. Yeah,
granted.
But I'm talking the actor, but I mean, for me, the bar is set at Leonard Nimoy and his portrayal of Spock. Now, Spock, yes, of course, was half human.
Yes.
But he played that Vulcan role as tight as you could. I mean, he created a lot of the Vulcan mythology. So
absolutely,
the Vulcan salute, the neck pinch, the things like that. That was all Leonard Nimoy. That wasn't Gene Roddenberry. That wasn't a creative staff. That was the actor. So he really is the bar.
We do have to thank Gene for keeping him, because the network originally wanted to get rid of Spock.
Because they found him to be demonic because of the pointed ears and the evil-looking eyebrows. Now, when they softened the eyebrow look, that helped
a little bit. So,
and when they
definitely
took away the laughing and the smiling, I thought they fleshed out the character a lot better.
Yeah,
for the second pilot.
Leonard, and like I said, because I mean, Leonard Nimoy did great with the Spock character, but when you really look at who the first no-kidding Vulcan you met was, it's Mark Lenard, and he did absolutely brilliantly. And especially the way the two of them, in those first episodes when they're together, and then later on in the movies when they're together, and you can see the tension between the two of them, you got a full-blooded Vulcan father and a half-Vulcan son, right? And the way that the two of them play off each other as Spock's trying to be the Vulcan side that he's accepted, but also dealing with the human side that his father's kind of, I don't really like that part of you, but,
The first Vulcan to serve in Starfleet instead of going to the Vulcan Science Academy and doing all of that. I thought that they struck a very nice balance at the end of Star Trek 4.
yes.
And that was, when Sarek's looking at Spock and he's like, as I recall, I opposed you joining Starfleet, and Spock kind of gives him this sideways look like, you think?
A little bit.
And then he's like, but your associates are people of good character.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was like Sarek saying, I support your decision now. I didn't see the logic behind it before, but I support it now. And of course, hey, thanks to your flawed feeling, emotional human friends, you're alive again. Thank God,
and
praise Surak for it.
In a way, when you think about it, that was basically an apology.
Exactly. That was the closest you were going to get.
I'm sorry about the way I treated you. I'm sorry for doubting you. And I definitely think probably the follow-up moment as they were getting ready to part, do you have a message for your mother? Yes. Tell her I feel fine. And then
Sarek is giving Spock this sideways look like.
Yeah, he kind of gives him a sideways look, but
okay.
He's like, well, I'm sure your mother will understand, but okay.
I sure as hell don't, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, just the way the two of them, they are Vulcan society when it comes down to it. And definitely when the T'Pol character came in Enterprise, she, I can't think of the actress's name.
Jolene Blalock.
Yes. But she picked right up on all of it. I would, if I didn't know any better, I would say she took lessons from Mark Leonard and Leonard Nimoy and ran with it. So
absolutely. I mean, because she started off the series really cold, really distant, really that hardcore Vulcan that everybody hated. Loved the outfit, hated the character. And by the end of the 4-season run, you had seen her grow to, she's still your logical, thoughtful Vulcan, but she had added layers.
Yes.
She, for lack of a better term, she became an onion, and she had, you could peel a little bit away from her, and you saw her. I mean, you saw some emotional times from her. Even if they were just brief, you still saw that. You saw her grow with her connections to the crew. So she became, part of a family that she didn't want to begin with, but she started to embrace and accept. And she even went to bat for Archer and the rest of the crew on numerous occasions, where if she were really going to overdo the Vulcan stuff, she would have been throwing everybody under the bus, and she would have been begging to get off the ship.
And that was the beautiful thing about it was, and this is, again, one of my complaints against liberals, right? Because, and this is where I thought you did beautifully in that episode. I think it was 2 episodes ago when you played the clip of the Borg introduction.
Yes.
So, because that is what I view mainstream liberalism as these days is we are the Borg. You will conform, you will do exactly as ordered, or you will be destroyed. So
resistance is futile.
Whereas, in Enterprise, you've got, the Vulcans were very much set in the way that they do things. I mean, even back in those episodes, the Vulcan mind meld, that was hocus pocus voodoo. You might as well have a scene from Monty Python. We found a witch. That's the way they viewed it back then.
She turned me into a new.
And then the Vulcan mind meld. Once they, somebody actually managed to convince them, hey, this isn't something we need to necessarily, cast off completely. What we need to do is we need to learn it. We need to figure out how to control it. We need to teach people properly. And we can use this in very logical fashion. And it took time for them to do that, part of it being human influence, right? And that same thing happened with T'Pol, whereas, the vast majority of Vulcans they ever deal with, they dealt with them on short-term basis. Once the business was done, the Vulcans left and went about their way. And now you've got one who's long-term staying with humans. And she starts to realize, you know what? It may not be the way that we do it, but the way they do it kind of works sometimes.
Yeah. And and on the flip side, you had Archer, you had Tucker, the engineer, you had Reed, the armory officer, you had all the human crew saying, they grew with their relationship. They originally viewed Vulcans as an obstacle to getting what they wanted when they wanted it because they wanted it.
Yep. Because
the Vulcans were always like, no, you got to take your time, and they would help, but they would hold the really vital stuff back.
Yeah.
In the humans' eyes, they always saw them as a threat, or not as a threat, but as an obstacle that they had to clear. And then all of a sudden, it became, we get where you guys were coming from now, because we had this war where we were not up to the task at all.
No.
So you had that going on. And they're like, okay, now we understand why you guys were doing what you were doing. It's not the way we would have done it. We would have just jumped in head first and we'd probably all be dead by now. But hey, we understand now. So they reached a cordial arrangement by the end of that. And you're right, where the liberals don't get it do it that way.
And it drives me nuts. And I think that's the biggest reason why they don't get Star Trek, right? I definitely classify myself as conservative. I don't know if you classify as conservative or libertarian or what.
I've always been. I definitely have more conservative leanings, and there are a pair of issues out there that I am as dead far to the right as most people would be on that side. I mean, if not even further, because the topics of one of them being abortion. Oh my God, that one is triggering anybody who know. I don't talk about it because it's really just personal, and I like to play things close to the vest. But if you listen to Keith Malinak's podcast At the Mic, the episode I did with him, we were talking about my wife and I having really struggling to have children, and it's because of issues on her end. And come to find out, she has this big, massive tumor that is woven itself into her muscle, and it's like basically trying to eat one of her ovaries and stuff like that. We've tried IVF, we've tried the good old fashioned way, we've tried artificial insemination, and it wasn't until just recently that we found out, there's this thing growing inside of her that's basically, that on the sonogram and everything, looked like frickin' Imhotep from the Mummy movies. Yeah. And so whenever and there is nothing more in life that she wants more than to have a child. She was always brought up to believe that, women are here to do this. Wives are supposed to do this. And because her family's old school Southern Baptist. So you could imagine, with that being ingrained in her head, she waited until she was older than most to even get married, because she felt like she hadn't found the right guy. I don't know what makes me the right guy. I almost feel sorry for her for deciding that I am the right guy. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy as hell about it, but I'm thinking, me? Really? I don't know.
I've got 4 daughters. Granted, my oldest one's about to turn 19, but I got 3 others, 12, 9, and 2. The youngest one is with my current wife. The other 3 are with my ex-wife, but I'm sure I could convince her to give you all one of the other 2 if you want.
Maybe. But so abortion is one, but otherwise for me, it's, I definitely have the more conservative leanings.
Right. And
so I kind of put myself there, but I also try to at least look at the other side and try to understand what it is, but it's gotten to the point where I can't even process what it is that they're going about and why they're doing it and how how they present it is just all wrong to me.
And that's why it begs the question: why is it that a television show that is essentially, and granted, that should be the ideal for all of us, because I will be perfectly honest. I look at the Star Trek universe, and I'm like, I would love to live there. I would love to live there. It is definitely a wonderful universe, so it should most definitely be for all of us, but I think most people consider it to be the liberal paradise. I can't necessarily fault them for that way of thinking. But that's supposed to be like everything they could ever want and more, and they themselves don't understand how they got there, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Because they're looking at, well, they don't use, money on Earth and this, that, the other. It's like, well, yeah, but that's also because of two things that we most certainly cannot achieve right now: virtually unlimited power and virtually unlimited resources.
Mm-hmm.
That's why nothing costs anything on Earth, because they can power everything and they can make anything you could ever want, and nobody's going to run out of anything.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, there are certain things in that utopian society that I would absolutely love to have. No homeless. So everybody's got a home. No hunger. That would be fine. Pretty much, with, of course, there are always exceptions to every rule, but disease. I mean,
they still have some, and I mean, you can see the medical profession is still very much alive, because people are going to die, people are going to get hurt, people are going to get sick, because you're never going to be impervious to everything.
Yeah.
But I mean, for the most part, a lot of different things are eradicated. Mm-hmm. People are living much longer lives, and it's very easy to take care of the basic stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
so, I mean, those benchmarks for the utopian Gene Roddenberry world, yeah. I mean, who wouldn't want that? But like you said, it's all
the liberals.
Yeah, well, yes, in current iterations, absolutely. So, I mean, and you brought it up. I mean, you haven't been able to get past episode 1 of Discovery.
Yeah,
because
again, that had more to do with just really, really crappy writing. Yeah. It didn't have anything to do with the universe itself. It had to do with crappy writing. I'm sure if I could have gotten past episode 1, there would have been plenty of things for me to bitch about.
Well, I mean, when you consider that in the progression of that show, the first officer who mutinied against her captain and her crew
doesn't she become the captain later?
Got her captain killed at the end of season whatever this is, 3 or 4, is now the captain of Discovery.
Let me ask you something. Why the fuck was she still in Starfleet in the first place?
Well, she was court-martialed, and she was sent off to serve a life in prison, and stripped of rank and all of that other stuff. But, through circumstances, she was, she didn't make it to prison because Mirror Universe captain brought her aboard Discovery, and, kind of made her
Mirror Universe.
I know, it's those damn Mirror Universe people. I mean, Spock with a beard and everything, it's just fucking creepy. But you have, because reasons, she was able to get back in, and for a while there, she wasn't exactly a actual commissioned officer, but then she became a commissioned officer again, and then they went into the future, and now she's the captain of a starship with the with Starfleet and the Federation of that time, which has apparently crumbled to just a few member worlds.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just what? How did? I mean, you talk about failing upwards and rewarding bad behavior. That's exactly what they've done the entire time with this character. And of course, the time that it's on, it very much reflects the political goings on. And I think that's where Star Trek has really gone wrong in recent years. It's been, instead of telling the story, as you were saying, oh, it's an alien culture. so it's not a big deal. Now they just beat you over the head with it.
I mean, I wouldn't say that at any point anybody's like, oh, it's an alien culture, so it's not a big deal. I mean, that's simply the avenue they went to address the thing, without hitting too close to home, so to speak, right?
Yeah, it was nuanced, and it was there was room for interpretation.
Because especially you look back at the original series, what's one of the big benchmarks that they claim? Right, first interracial kiss on television.
Oh yeah,
right. Kirk and Uhura, first interracial kiss on television. How did they bring that kiss about, though?
Weren't they like prisoner and being mind controlled and all that other stuff?
Exactly. I mean, they were completely aware, but basically these alien beings took telekinetic control of their bodies and forced them to do it. That's how they got away with doing that back in the 60s. Mm-hmm. They weren't in control of what they did. They accomplished the first interracial kiss on television, but the characters were not in control of their bodies, and that's how they got around it. That's what Gene Roddenberry did with all of his stuff. He attacked racism. Like I said, you got these aliens. One's white on the left side, black on the right side, and this one's black on the left side, white on the right side, and that's why they hate each other, right? Mm-hmm. Without going into, okay, he's white, he's black, and this, that, the other. So I mean, Star Trek has a long history of twisting things in a way to address the situations that they want to talk about, which is completely acceptable, and personally, I love it in most iterations.
Yeah, in TNG, you had the episode where a species that is completely androgynous, non-gender binary in today's vernacular, they don't identify as male or female, but they have a subsect that do identify as male and female, and they're the outcast. And yet somehow Riker figures out how to have sex with one of them.
I was just going to say that. If you didn't say it, I was going to. Somehow Riker still did it.
That man is uncanny. I thought Kirk was uncanny when it came to betting the females. Riker topped him right there with the you're gender non-binary. Let me find a hole. I'll plug it for you.
Hey.
And ta-da! He found one.
Any port in a storm, so to speak.
Amen. So how else do liberals get Star Trek wrong, in your opinion?
So, I mean, those are really the biggest ones right there. They all want to put it in absolute terms of things, right? When at no point does Star Trek ever put anything in absolutes in any way, shape, or form. And I think definitely the biggest way to show how Starfleet doesn't put absolutes on anything. What is the number one directive?
The Prime Directive, the non-interference clause.
Exactly.
We do not interfere with the development of a planet, of a culture.
Exactly. Now,
and yet that rule has been broken many, many times.
Many, many times. And I was about to bring that up because one of the biggest things that they all, the rule of thumb, so to speak, was if they're warp capable, you leave them alone. Right? Yes and no. Right? Or if they're warp capable, then, they're fair game. If they're pre-warp, you leave them alone. Yeah, exactly. You don't touch them, right? Yes and no. The Prime Directive applies to everybody. Period. Right? If they're pre-warp, you don't make contact. Right? You don't go down and talk to them. You don't do nothing with them. They should not know you exist. Period. That is the pre-warp side of the Prime Directive. But just because they have warp capability doesn't mean you can go in and just start telling them what to do and this, that, the other. Very much some. Star Trek Insurrection, personally one of my favorite movies. Right? You got a Starfleet admiral trying to say, oh, we are perfectly justified in relocating these aliens away from the planet that's basically granted them immortality because they are warp capable, so, they were never meant to be immortal. We're perfectly justified in moving them and
Well, his
destroying their
justification
planet.
his justification was they're not indigenous to that planet. At first, when Picard was going along with the program, it was, oh, relocating them shouldn't be too terrible because they have warp drive. And then you peel back the onion layers, so to speak, and you realize that, oh, these people weren't indigenous, so the Prime Directive doesn't apply now.
Which is wrong.
I would say it does. I mean, and you didn't even bother to take the time to go and talk to them and see about asking them how you could benefit from the planet's atmosphere and the elements there to benefit the entire Federation. You were just going along with these assholes who, come to find out, were of the same people, just outcast.
Yep.
And you're just going to force relocate them. You were going to put them in a big sweating box and get rid of them.
Yeah.
Now they were going to move them someplace else, but
which would have eventually killed them, as we realized.
Exactly.
But,
we know, but that hollow ship, we know what that was. You know what they were kind of referring to there.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, but again, very nuanced.
Very, very nuanced.
And you saw it, and you can make arguments on it, and people can have discussion and debate and discourse about it.
Yeah.
But now you can't.
No, you can't. I mean, in these days, it's very much, in your face, and we gotta, it has to be this way, and you have to think this way, and you have to do things this way. I dare you. Find me any episode, and like I said, I don't know what they did in Discovery. Never got past the first episode, so for all I know, it's all about you'll do it this way, this way, this way, this way. But find me any episode where they addressed an issue and said, "This is how you have to think. This is how you have to act. This is how you have to do anything." Right? Because Star Trek has never been about telling you what to think. Star Trek is the very epitome of getting people just to think. When they take a look at something and they're like, huh. And that's one of the reasons why I love it so much. Granted, I love it also because you've got spaceships that fly around shooting cool-ass laser beams and stuff at each other. But at the same time, it addresses issues in a way where you're not telling anybody, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to think this, you have to go that way, you have to do this thing. It's all about, here it is, enjoy.
Yeah.
And the people sit there and they're like, holy crap.
Now, I know I jumped in on the insurrection point. Did you have another point from that movie? Since, I mean, you said it's, like one of your favorites, so I want to give you the floor to make sure that you covered all of insurrection the way you wanted to.
I mean, that's definitely one of the biggest ones was, we don't have any business telling anybody anything about how to live or anything like that, right? Whether we agree with it or not, whether, even if, if we do this thing with them, then we can benefit all these other people, right? Because very much they were taking a bad page out of Spock's playbook. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Well, we've got billions and billions of Federation citizens, and there's only about 600 people on this planet. So, we can totally relocate the 600, and they can still benefit from the technology we developed from this. Well, no, that's not how it works. You don't have a right to just steal their home and destroy their planet just because you think you can do something better with it, right? It's not the way it works. And the other thing was definitely about, when you see injustice, you absolutely step in whatever form you see necessary to stop it, right? It's the whole reason it's insurrection in the first place, right? Because they were stepping against the Federation Council, against the leadership. Granted, the Federation Council probably didn't know the whole story, but they were basically defying Federation orders. That was a legitimate government, and they stepped in and they're like, okay, we're going to do whatever it takes to stop this from happening. So I'm going to go down here with this group of armed people. We're going to do our thing. You get out there and you get a hold of the council and make them see what's really going on. We're putting a stop to this, right? So when you see something, say something, do something, right? And you can see throughout the whole thing, they didn't just immediately start killing people, right? They did everything they could to avoid killing anybody. You know, even when it came to, okay, now we're on the alien ships and whatnot, they still took prisoners.
Yep.
I think out of all the alien beings, the only one that died was Adaru Afo, the leader. And that was because he got caught in a self-destruct.
Yep. He made his bed. He had to lie in it at that point.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
you know,
And
absolutely.
Picard had a very poignant moment in that movie when he was talking to the Admiral. He said, you know, at what point does it become wrong? What we're doing is wrong. 600, 6,000, 10,000, a million, you know,
Exactly.
you know, how many people have to die or how many people have to suffer or before it becomes wrong? Well, it was wrong from the get-go, and that's what Picard was saying.
Exactly.
And come to find out, the Admiral, you know, basically lied to Starfleet Command about what he was doing there. So,
And you know, it's a point similar to
and that was a
something-
real insurrection in that movie, by the way.
Yes,
that
very
was
much
a
so.
real insurrection. Okay,
Very
they
much
had weapons, they had technology, they were, you know, they were content on blowing some shit up. Okay, and
Oh, yes.
they were taking over what they needed to. That's
Exactly.
what they were going. That's what they were trying to do, and Picard and his team stepped in to stop it.
Oh yes, very
Yeah.
much so.
But they went about it the right way. They were defending the people that were there. At the same time, they were, hey, Riker, take your freshly shaved face, which looked creepy as hell,
Oh my god!
and you know, get out there.
Got so used to him with a beard. That was just
Exactly.
wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
That-
and
That was the
you know,
best
get out
move they
there.
did with Jonathan Frakes, was making him grow that damn thing out.
Mhm.
'Cause, you
Yeah.
know, I think it was season
Just
3
one.
when that thing really came out. 'Cause I think seasons 1
He had-
1 and 2 he was clean shaven. I think it was 3 when he started growing it.
Maybe. Now I got to look that up because I'm gonna just type in Riker's beard.
But and I mean, in reality, Picard has had a lot of poignant moments where it's just that slap in your face kind of stuff. You know, the big theme all throughout Star Trek First Contact. What was the huge theme regarding Picard in that one? Revenge. Right?
Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
and that moment of clarity when he realizes, holy crap, I am actually willing to throw everything out the window just because I want to get back at these people for what they did to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
It was season 2 when the beard made its debut.
Was it? I thought it was 3.
Because they still had the original uniforms with the pinstriping along the shoulders,
The pajama
the
jumpers.
collarbones. Yeah, the pajama jumpers, and Dr. Pulaski.
Ugh.
So
That was one character we could have done without.
yeah, I mean, and the thing is, the circumstances behind it is what really.
Yeah,
made
I mean
everything
that was the
stop.
big driving motivation behind it, and obviously I'm not going to armchair cast or anything really, especially this late in the game. It's kind of pointless, but yeah, I could have done without her, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I mean the behind the scenes drama between Gates McFadden and Maurice Hurley, the showrunner at the time. I mean that the vitriol and the hatred between the two of them was pretty palpable. So when the contract came due, he's like, "Yeah, we're just not bringing you back. We need a new doctor. Get a new doctor." And they said, "Oh, hey, we could get this actress who was in the original series as a guest star, and we can make her the new doctor. Nobody's going to miss Beverly Crusher."
Guess what?
And yeah, and sadly, some members of the cast did kind of take it out on the actress that played Dr. Pulaski. They kind of took it out on her. She never really meshed with a lot of the cast, and as an actress, she didn't like the role because she felt when she did the original series, you had to act in order to make the scenes and everything work. She
Yeah.
said now it was just, oh, hey, I have a little piece of technology that does its thing, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
And her adversarial take on Data pissed me off all throughout the entire season.
That was actually one of the few things I enjoyed about the character.
Really?
Yes, because everybody else, everybody and their mother was all about, teaching Data this, teaching Data that, teaching, Data how to be human, which technically is something he could never actually achieve, but it's something that we can work toward, a more perfect being, to kind of paraphrase from the preamble, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now you've got this one person who's like, I don't know what the big deal is. It's just a damn machine. It's never gonna, actually be any of those things you're trying to teach it. All it's going to do is just build an algorithm that simulates it, but it's never actually going to be. So what's the point? And
but taking the time to purposely call him by the wrong name, or it does know how to do these things, right?
Yeah, referring to him as it, or calling him Data instead of Data, stuff like that. So, as much as
now,
that
as the season went on, she developed a respect for him and everything. But
I don't think she ever fully accepted him, but she did respect him to a point. But that was one of the things that I enjoyed, was it threw a new perspective on the Data character when you're looking at it from the eyes of somebody else, right?
Yeah, I loved how he corrected her.
Whether
Data. Excuse me? You called me Data. My name is Data.
Yeah.
Well, what's the difference? One is my name. One is not.
Exactly.
And it's just the deadpan delivery of it. I'm sitting there going, boom! Drop the mic.
And if you think about it, that that entire season, that very relationship was just a season-long conversation on racism.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, I mean, I thought it was very beautifully done. That was one of the few things about the character that I liked. Like you said, she didn't really mesh with everybody else anyway. I definitely don't think she really mixed in all that well.
Yeah, she didn't mix in well. The fans didn't like her. The fans,
my mother did.
Back in those days, they launched the fan mail campaign that, bring Dr. Crusher back. I think that you could have gotten away with it if you hadn't have kept Wesley Crusher, and if you hadn't have kept referring to Beverly. If you had just done away with the Crusher arc, period, I think you could have gotten away with recasting the Doctor. And they were going for somebody who, it felt to me that they were really trying to cast somebody, and this new Doctor, as the new Bones. Mm-hmm. Where they're going to say smart alecky things. They're going to be kind of like that old school country doctor,
which she never quite achieved.
Because at one point she said, make a splint and put it on, and this other doctor's like, a splint? She's like, yeah. I mean, that was that, and she said, use some good old country medicine. And I'm thinking, that's McCoy. That's DeForest Kelley. That's Bones. That's original series.
Yeah.
This is set, just about a little under 100 years removed from that. So that doesn't fit this new cast, this new look and everything that you're going for. So she was kind of fish out of water to me. Mm-hmm. I think that, you could have made some changes and you could have softened it a little bit more, and you could have had something really good there. But you just had the constant comparisons to Dr. Crusher.
Yeah.
I mean, and the fact that Picard didn't even trust her to do an operation on him in that season. Like, please, if Beverly were still on that ship, you would have had her do it. I know you would have.
Yeah. And I mean, for different reasons, I don't think it had so much to do with trust, really. But I mean,
well, he didn't want to look, fallible in front of his crew. It was the captain's pride.
Yeah,
that he was banking on.
Which was where that all played in. He knew Beverly on a completely different level. They were friends before they were crewmates, and so he could look vulnerable in front of her because she's seen him that way. Whereas this Dr. Pulaski had never seen him that way, and so he can't open himself that way. So it wasn't about trust so much as it was vulnerability.
And at that time, Picard didn't know her motivation for wanting to be posted to the Enterprise, which was sheer admiration of him from her.
So, but
I could have gone about it differently. I do like the fact that even in later seasons, they gave some hat tips to Kate Pulaski to the character.
A little bit. And that
here and there.
That was something they were
that was
good
great.
at with a lot of different things, because you had the episode Measure of a Man, which basically put Data on trial. Is he legitimately a being in his own right, or is he property of Starfleet? And then later on, you have the episode Data's Day, which is basically him doing a log entry describing
He's narrating
one of his days, and he's writing it to the doctor
who wanted to disassemble
who wanted to disassemble him and study him in the first place. He's like, hey, per our discussion before, I'm sending you this message talking to you about a typical day for me to help you with your pursuits. So, that was something they did wonderfully on a lot of times when it came to different stuff. Like, they didn't necessarily, all right, here's something, and then you never hear about it again, right?
Exactly. Wow, we really did do a deep dive on that nerdy stuff, on that Star Trek stuff. Trekkie life. Look, geek chic is a thing, right? Nerd chic is a thing. Been a Trekkie most of my life, and as you can tell, it is a subject that people can talk about at length. And I hope you enjoyed it. We'll have part 2 coming up in a future episode and other special surprises along the way. And that's going to do it for this week's edition of TV's Rob is Unwoke. I am TV's Rob. Special thanks to Stephen Avery, Pretty Princess Stephen, or Patriot Princess Stephen, however you want to go about identifying yourself today. If you're enjoying the show, please go on to Apple Podcasts and leave a review and a 5-star rating. Help other people find the show. If you want to come on the show and get in on the action and make your mark, just go to anchor.fm/TV's Rob is Unwoke and leave a voice message. Or if you just want to come on and hash something out, hit me up on Twitter @TV's Rob Official. We'll discuss whatever's on your mind. Special thanks to my wife and producer, Nikki. You can follow her on Twitter @DFW Radio Girly. By the way, thank you for the thoughts and prayers with her health issue. If you don't know, go look at Twitter and get caught up. You can also follow @CatRyoga, the official derpy cat of TV's Rob is Unwoke. So you can check him out there as well. I'm TV's Rob. That's going to do it for this edition of TV's Rob is Unwoke. We'll catch you next time.